Okay, good morning. Today is May 21st, 2026, and this is a meeting of the Committee of Conference, which includes the Senate institutions and the House institutions and corrections. And we had a couple of items that were pending, mostly pending language, because we did agree on dollars. And so we're going to discuss that. Senator Plunkett has another meeting right now, but we'll expect him shortly. So let's hear from the council.
Perfect.
Okay, on the language. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. I just sent a document to Tate. I haven't pulled up. I don't know if it's been posted yet, but it will be posted shortly, but in already.
Thank you for the work you do.
Yes, and
I know you're pulling all different.
Scott is making my life much happier than it otherwise would be. So I appreciate all for, yes.
We're appreciative to him too.
What I've done this morning is, I think we're talking about language related to 110 stage, and I'll share in just a second.
I shared it there.
Yep, but I wanted to note that I put together a document that contains all the policy language sections for which there were changes. So it's not all the policy sections of the bill because some were undisputed between the conferees. But it contains all the policy sections. So I can show you all the language updates, but I'm happy to start with 110 stage, that sort of like.
Please do.
Okay, so. This is what you're gonna see. It's a big policy document. Let me just jump.
Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me, because Senator Plunkett is gonna join us in a few minutes. Let's start with the other policy.
Sure. So the first policy piece, this was discussed yesterday, and you'll remember that my colleague Michael Grady was in here talking about the Little River State Park lease. The agreement that was reached was related to sort of a reporting mechanism, so you could ensure that everything's going as you would hope. And so organizationally, you need to add a new subsection header, but the real change is this new subsection B. And this is that the Commissioner of Forest Parks and Rec shall report to the chairs of these committees with a report on the status of the lease negotiations under the section on or before August 15th, 2026, which was the date discussed yesterday, and immediately prior to execution of any related lease agreement, and it shall provide to the chairs of the lease agreement promptly following execution. So I think that captures the discussions yesterday.
It does. I need to check on that date. I might need it to be slightly earlier just because not being accessible on that date. But it would just.
Well, we said on it, when we talked to them, they figured they'd be about midpoint in the negotiations.
I understand, and I hadn't thought about that in terms of my schedule. But it would just be.
Yeah, it says on or before August 15th, it would be a phone call or a Zoom meeting. I mean, it's not gonna be something we have to come up here for.
Right, no, I understand that, but look, I'm just giving you a heads up, because I know we have other language, and I'll talk to them to
Okay,
make sure that would work.
okay.
Okay, so there may be something on the date.
Just the date.
Grab this cool pen I got.
I saw that. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's like a piece of cream.
I'm gonna jump over this one because it sounds like we're waiting for Senator Plunkett to come back. This is the core thing you wanted to discuss. But one thing I'll go ahead and say, some of what you're seeing in here, because this is just standalone language for purposes of presentation, trying to give myself direction as to what to do. I wouldn't have included section 14A here because there's nothing to show. It's deleted. I'm just noting to you that because the presentation is going to change, and this is going to be in the form of acceding to the Senate proposal amendment with further proposal amendment, because you're accepting one of the bases there. I think it's what's going to be simplest, although we can talk about that too. We'll need to delete section 14A, which is the repeal of authority to sell 110 state.
Okay, so we don't accede to the Senate.
So it just depends on how you want to. You guys are free to ask whichever way you would like it to be. If you would like it to be reseed, and then you have the proposal of amendment that set out all the sections with the changes. You're welcome to do that.
That's the difference when you get into doing it this way versus strike off.
If you want to do a strike all, that's also totally doable.
I think the strike off, I'm just thinking. Now that I'm at this point, because earlier we
Yeah.
weren't at that point. I think
Certainly easier to see all the things that you've agreed, and if you have the strike all in front of you.
yeah, I think the strike all is gonna be better, because then you got the whole package there.
Yeah, I think the strike all is better for us knowing what we did, and then it's also better for future people
Yeah.
looking at this and knowing what
Yep.
we did.
I think it's just better to do a strike off.
Happy to do that. So the way we would do it, it was
I like the
received.
changes.
Yeah, it would be received from the Senate proposal of amendment with further proposal of amendment to the House
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah, and it's
Strike
a
off.
strike off.
Happy to do that.
Then you can just possibly, I don't know. Just do a
Yeah, I
strike-
mean,
Just do a strike.
I have a report in this format basically. And so what I could do is once everything's agreed, swap out the sections with these highlighted sections.
But it would show more than just what changed.
It would show the full of the bill.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wouldn't show things in Act 33 that were untouched by both chambers because those just weren't amended. But it would have the full size of the House's bill plus new policy sections that the Senate committee added. But I actually think this way of doing it is going to be simplest, where we just have policy sections, then we have money sections. If there's agreement, then I compile based on agreement. I can maintain the highlighting so you see everything that you agreed and then strip it out for a vote, basically. So I'll come back to this, but this is the 110 stage. There are a couple of other pieces here, one related to what I just heard some discussions on.
Good, yeah.
So this is one I did want to pose a question on. This is the language that is intended to mirror the language of the budget. And
Yeah, their language is different right now.
there's been an updated language, which I received through Cole yesterday. And my understanding is that Human Services agreed to this, BGS was comfortable with this, AHS was comfortable with this. So I have just typed up what I saw in that email, which is, so just to go over it, instead of monthly,
Right.
a requirement of reporting to try to get that full operating budget. It's at the August, October, December 2026 meetings of the Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee. DCF, BGS shall report on their plan to develop the Green Mountain View facility. So similar sub A. Sub B used to be the prohibition on expending any funds in FY 27 until you got the budget, and that would happen either you would have approval off session, or you would have the General Assembly itself take legislative action during session. That's been updated to say that notwithstanding any other provision on the contrary, before DCF and BGS approved design docs for construction and prior to approval of the lease for the facility, BGS shall submit their approved design to the House Committees on American Institutions and on Human Services and the Senate Committees on Institutions and on Health and Welfare. At the same time, DCF shall submit a draft operating budget. So I think the concepts are pretty intuitive to understand. Instead of a threat, basically it was to say you do this. The point I wanted to raise is that up to this point, the reason this language was traveling in two bills was to ensure that you guys had a place at the table when the discussions happened. So I don't know if you still want this section. I guess it's okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I do.
Okay. So
Because this is gonna be important to keep track, because we need to keep working with BGS to make sure they're represented at the table as this continues, so the new legislature next year understands the connection. I've also spoken to the chair of appropriations this morning about this, because the same language needs to be in the big bill.
that's why I wanted to raise it, is I did, just because of the rush in compiling this, while I did follow exactly the email that Cole sent me, but for like stylistic things that require updating. I do want to make sure there's no divergence between whatever happens in the budget. And so I haven't had a chance to talk with Emily Jacob about this, but I know that she was on the email chain and agreed with the language. So let me just,
The two people that had to sign off on this was the chair of Human Services, Representative Wood, and BGS.
And I saw both on the. The other piece here, which is highly relevant to the conversation that you guys were just having. This is your DOC report of the Wi-Fi installation. This is tied to the final appropriation, which I think is now at 750K cash. Previously what the language said, so ignoring what you see in front of you, was that the Commissioner of Corrections and the Chief Information Officer of Digital Services, in consultation with VGS, would report monthly to Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee, in consultation with the chairs of the institutions committees on the installation of Wi-Fi. I've stripped the reference to in consultation with the chairs because I think you're both on Joint Legislative Justice Oversight, so there's no need to duplicate it. But the restructuring that you see here is really to kind of make the primary entity that's reporting ADS. That's what you're saying here. So instead of Commissioner of Corrections and Chief Information Officer of Digital Services, this is saying the Chief Information Officer is the one reporting. Yes, they are doing it in consultation with the Commissioner of BGS and the Commissioner of Corrections, but it's on ADS to be the one reporting. And so this is saying the Chief Information Officer to report to Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee at each scheduled meeting of the committee in calendar year 2026 on the installation process. I think it's closer to what you guys were.
So I just got a note, hey, the Kristen Calver and ADS can meet at 10 today.
That's when we go to the floor. So depending on what, well, can't take 3 of us. Oh, actually, but
You're only
we
gonna
don't
need
need that.
one.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay,
there'd only be
Okay.
5 people.
right.
So we'll probably have a little bit more language on
Okay.
this, and we can also show them this language too.
Okay. I've told folks this morning that I am trying to maximize time for this process. So for the time being, I'm sticking around with you guys.
So 10 o'clock would be great.
I will plan to be there at 10 unless.
Would it-
Your office or we can be here.
Just meet right here.
Okay,
If you did let
that's fine.
Kristen and Denise know. Because they're right here, be easier just to come into the building. It might be quieter, because probably quieter. If your folks are gonna be on the floor.
People
I'm
won't be
having to
looking
go.
for you.
No, my committee members gonna go out. I have a committee member.
Would you like for, so that's all the policy updates that I have. There are obviously some
There's a lot more.
language changes within the money sections themselves. If you would like for me to wait for Senator Plunkett to arrive to talk 110 State Street, I did send Tate an incredibly quickly compiled full money section changes, including the language updates to the money sections. So I could jump to that if you would like to see that instead of talking 110.
Yes, well, does anyone want to talk about 110 first?
Sure.
Okay,
Happy to.
okay, let's do 110.
Scrolling back up, 14A will be, actually won't be deleted since we're doing a strike all, it'll just work different. So, what we have here is an amendment to the existing authority, which was previously repealed in the Senate proposal to sell 110 State Street. That's in your 2023 Capital Bill Act 69. And so we have to go in and amend that underlying session law provision. Subsection A is the exclusive subsection that deals with 110 State Street. Actually, section 22 in which it's set relates to other properties as well. So we want to make sure that you don't disrupt those. I think it's helpful if I read through and not talk about the current changes. So just ignore the strike through and underlines, and I can just do high level. The existing language says, notwithstanding 166B, which is the provision of existing law that relates to the process for going out to sell or transfer property, and in particular, mandates that it be sold at fair market value. That is not withstood in the existing language from Act 69 from 2023. So currently you could sell for less than F&V with that notwithstanding language. The other pieces of the language here, so it extends authority to sell the property, but at that time it extended, it said that the commissioner shall first offer in writing to the city of Montpelier the right to purchase the property. And then it had particular conditions related to that. So that's the high level you need to know from the existing. obviously you're stripping out here the pieces related to first offering and writing to the city the right to purchase that property.
But wouldn't we also take out authorized to sell property? Oh, it's in.
In the city,
Okay,
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
read it wrong.
No, you're thinking in the right way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
So what you have now is you've struck the notwithstanding language. It's one of the core requests from yesterday. So that is what would have allowed selling below market. When you strike the notwithstanding language, this now has to follow the full process in 166B, which includes the requirement for FMV. It also requires other processes that BGS would have to follow, including, either a sealed bid process or public process. So you're getting a more fulsome process by removing the notwithstanding language, and you're going to get FMV. So that's the first big change, is just striking the notwithstanding language. So now it's the commissioner is authorized to sell the property located at 110 State Street in the city of Montpelier, which is the call out for its location. So we're getting the correct piece. It's unrelated to extending to the city the right to purchase, but it now applies particular conditions. It says you're authorized to sell it provided that the commissioner includes in any contract for sale. And then we have two conditions. And I'm sorry that this is just hard to read.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
First, in subdivision A, appropriate interior and exterior protective covenants developed in consultation with the Division for Historic Preservation and the Vermont Advisory Council on Historic Preservation pursuant to 22 VSA Section 743. So the request was to ensure that there are interior and exterior protective covenants. When I looked in Title 22, I didn't see anything prescriptive as to like these are, as you might expect. There's no list of covenants that I came across. Admittedly, this is not an area I typically look into, but I didn't see anything in that place. But in Title 22, in the Historic Preservation chapter, there are measures included to reach out to, and you're required to consult with the Advisory Council for a number of things related to properties of particular historic value. Some of those would already be kicking in. If it's of historic value, the department would already be obligated to speak with these folks. But this is saying something further. It's saying you need to consult with these folks and develop appropriate interior and exterior protective covenants. And you may be asking, why is the word appropriate there? You could do with or without. If you just said interior or exterior protective covenants, technically you could meet that condition logically by just including two covenants of extremely limited value, right? So with the appropriate modifier, you're trying to say, we want these to be actually robust covenants protective of what should be protected in the property.
So John, can you just go
Yes.
back up just so the introductory?
Mhm.
Okay,
Commissioner is authorized to sell provided that
Yeah.
these conditions are met essentially. So include in the contract appropriate covenants developed in consultation with the Division for Historic Preservation and the Advisory Council. Senator Harris and I had some communications this morning. Initially, I drafted this just with reference to the Advisory Council. But Senator Harrison was reaching out, and I think the Division for Historic Preservation, as I understand it, would be staffing them anyway. And so we just have to call out to both. The statutory reference itself that you'll see just references Advisory Council, which is why the reference is maintained to them. You could probably just say Division for Historic Preservation if they're the ones who are going to do the work, because it's nice to have the cross-reference to statute. I think it's useful to maintain the call it.
I think it's fine. Can we go back, because I had, there were four things, and one of them was to make sure that it was sold at fair market value, but that's in the statute
Exactly.
process, so
Exactly.
we don't have to say that here.
We don't have to say that here, but we do say it here in a second. You'll see.
Oh, good, okay.
We don't have to say it here because the statute provides the process, but for clarity, there's a new subsection, I think C or B, or a subdivision 3 that speaks to.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So we've got FMV, we've got covenants. The other condition that needs to be included in the contract, terms extending the Department of Buildings and General Services a right of first refusal on the next proposed sale of the property. I think that they would be the entity who would be conducting the purchase, so that's why the reference to them rather than state. So extend the Department of Buildings and General Services a right of first refusal on the next proposed sale of the property. So I do want to call out a couple of things. Right of first refusal, I think folks are familiar with. It is not something that mandates that you go out with terms that only BGS could meet, right? If I was trying to sell a property and Senator Harrison had a right of first refusal, but Senator Benson approached me and said, I want to buy your house for $500K. The right of first refusal means that I extend to Senator Harrison the house at $500K. It doesn't mean that I have to negotiate for $300K with Senator Harrison and accept a worse offer. It's just literally that I need to make available that first offer.
And so is that process well enough known?
Yes.
You don't have to,
Yeah.
okay, good.
And if folks come back and say, we want more, I can, but this is like quite
That's my
common.
understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The next piece to note about this is that typically rights of first refusal, as I understand it, although I'm not a real estate attorney, typically expire. If you just did a yearly, you could do something like a yearly condition, but in this case, the modifier agency is on the next proposed sale of the property. So this is meant to persist until a subsequent sale, which would allow you to check in at a time and give the state essentially an opportunity to repurchase if they were able to. That is the idea.
Has there been any indication that something like this has been put in place before, that the state would have the right of first refusal on a property that they used to own that they sold?
So there's two things I would note. One is unrelated to the state itself specifically, but this condition, previously had I sort of right of first refusal to the city of Montpelier, but to your question, which is about the state itself, I tried to search through some capital bills, did not come across exactly this, although I didn't have a ton of time to, be really rigorous in review. The one thing I would note though is that 29 VSA section 152, which is the authorities for PGS, specifically, and I can pull this up if we need to, but specifically contemplate conditions that apply when the commissioner is receiving a right of first refusal on state property. So that suggests to me that at least the idea has been contemplated before, and I'm happy to pull that up if you would find that useful. But I guess my point is, someone has thought of the idea before, and statute has considered this factor. I have not found in previous capital bills, although it may be there, and I could spend more time looking into it, a similar right of first refusal.
I could see limiting this to a certain, like, 100 years would not make sense, to expect that. So I could see limiting that, having it a time.
Time frame of not more like 25 or 30 years?
Yeah, even 10 years, I think.
Yeah, you could leave both in, you could say first sale or set the time frame, 20 years.
Yeah, or up to 20 years. Yeah, the point is that it doesn't get flipped. And
So do you want to do just a time period? I think if you do the time period and it's meant to be a restrictive time period, then that will capture the first sale. So it doesn't make the time period in which it's not a restricted time period.
Right. The only difference is we put a time frame, it could have locals.
Yes.
In that
Yes.
period.
Yeah, you could do the
oh,
early,
that's a good point.
you could do the earlier of,
Yeah.
the early of first sale or.
Right. So you can
The
propose.
first sale within a 10-year period or whatever.
So let's go with 20 and then think about it. We will be coming back.
I won't be for 20 years.
No, well, I'm thinking later today. I think we're gonna be.
Although my mother lived to be 105, so I don't know. Gosh.
Never know, as long as your brain works.
Okay.
I've got to contemplate mortality right now, so.
Wait until this session's done.
Up to this point, we've covered F&V, we've covered covenants, we've talked about right of first refusal. Subdivision 2 speaks to those assurances. So BGS shall provide to the chairs of the Senate Committee on Institutions and the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions copies of any related request for proposal, and any executed contract for sale of 110 State Street, the city of Montpelier, promptly after each becomes available. So that's your notice provisions.
Yeah, and let me just say, so we're doing that in lieu of uh, agreed contract. Because we understand that those are not public records.
You're saying under negotiation.
Yeah.
So this wouldn't interrupt the bargaining process.
Right, contract already been agreed to, but something.
Exactly.
Nope, so far what I've seen seems like what we talked about. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Sub 3 is just to try to tie the conditions together and make clear why the provisions are being included. It is the intent of the General Assembly to ensure that 110 State Street in the city of Montpelier is sold at fair market value, that historic attributes of the property are protected for future generations, and that the General Assembly receives timely notice of updates to the negotiation process to ensure that the disposition of the property is in the best interests of the state.
That's good. It's good framing.
Excellent. So can leave it here for now. And you guys want to discuss more. If you would like to, I'm happy to show you the money sections, including the language updates there. We don't necessarily have to come through all the money pieces if they've already been agreed. And I do want to touch base with Scott, but
Can we go over
I-
language that we've
Yeah.
talked about, so you can start? That's language. I don't know.
is there a
Yeah.
new?
Well, we have a list of language things, so I don't know if you've done this or not, because it's just been so
Okay.
fractured here.
Is it helpful? I'm happy to go either way. You can tell me the things you have, or I can show you what I have and you can tell me if I'm missing something.
But just before we do that, Senator Plunkett wasn't here when we were talking about the Wi-Fi.
Yes, we've got at 10 o'clock, hopefully.
They moved 11:50.
Hmm.
Oh.
Okay. It may become
They are
harder and
so
harder.
flexible.
It gets kind of get harder and harder. So ADS came to me this morning, wanting to talk about the Wi-Fi. DOC, what they're saying is that DOC really needs to have the resources to work with ADS to really look at what is needed within DOC. It's not just Wi-Fi, but how they're going to use it. And ADS was saying they just don't have the resources to do this. So the thinking is ADS has contractors already that can do some of this. And the extra money we put in to the Wi-Fi line would help get those contractors. I want to hear from DOC to hear what resources. Is it inventory in terms of what's needed? Is it how the delivery of how you're going to go from a paper system to a digital system? So I want to bring DOC and ADS together at the table. And because they want some, I think we need to put in some language for this. And we're trying to get Kristen Galver, Deputy Commissioner of DOC, and with Denise from ADS, so we can have this conversation. I was thinking just our house conferees, because that's who we were reached out to at 10 minutes.
We'll be on the floor anyway.
Yeah, we have more flexibility to be off the floor because there's more numbers of us. It's not, but now it's 11:30.
Correct.
Well,
Do you know about the order of things for us upstairs?
No.
No, 193 is up second. Perfect.
second this morning, which is probably 11:30,
It should be. Maybe, yes.
because it's gonna be, there's some amendments going on.
Yeah.
Just sort of my limitation is
You're gone.
absolutely hard stop before 4
Well, I want to get it done
Today.
today. Yes.
I mean, I think we can agree on everything, but this last thing with
Yeah.
Wi-Fi just popped up, and I think it's a real opportunity to get some language to make sure they're gonna work together. Because if DOC's the problem, let's put that on the table. And, you know, it's like, why wait to the 11th hour? We've been talking about this since last year.
So do we have language that we want?
That's what we're gonna work on.
Right, but maybe we should just propose something in
But we
the
don't
meantime.
know where the discrepancy is between what DOC is saying and ADS. We need to get both of those folks together, so they're both
Okay.
on the same page, because we can do language, but it's gonna be changed. So I'm concerned with John's time, and we have language that we wanted. With the women's correctional facility about priorities.
Do we have that?
Well, that's my question. He may not be aware of some
This is for bathrooms.
for bathrooms, and the DOC needs to be involved.
Yes.
Well, DOC.
I hear you.
involved,
Well,
Yep.
But there also, the other piece of is dealing with, that's right, it was other correctional facilities. And dealing with the overcrowding, and also to give a review to joint justice.
Okay. Yeah, let's go through these and then I can pull out the language I do have and we can
Okay.
talk about it.
And then you did the Forest and Parks, you did the juvie. And then for the State House, renovations. Before any finalized construction documents. That it has to come to the legislature. Before any, completion documents, so for legislative approval. And BGS was working on it with that one.
And that's both houses,
Yeah, be January,
Okay.
be in January.
Okay.
So that comes to the
So-
institutions committees.
But just to the committees or to the,
Well, the institutions committee needs to fund the money in the capital bill for it, so we need to know what those construction documents.
Yeah.
For the cost. I mean, it can come to the general assembly, but it's our committees that make that decision.
yes, but I guess I've heard a lot of stories about the carpets and how.
That's,
But we're, so you're not talking about, the legislature as a whole having to approve that.
so.
Are you, or what's the plan now for that?
So the way the process works is if you're gonna have construction, major construction in this building. You're gonna have schematic design development documents, and construction documents. The funding for that comes through our two committees, so it's our two committees that need to see those documents. And we reach out to our colleagues and weigh in, but the ultimate decision in terms of how much money is appropriated. For that fiscal year and subsequent fiscal years comes from our two committees through the capital.
Sure.
So, yeah, can I add something? So this is one where I, in the rush, this is one I don't have in the language right now, but I think what you would do, because it picks up the natural legislative process, you're just trying to mandate that something occurs for the natural legislative process. Order for January 15th, 2027. You get an update on the status of design documents related to the entryway and the egress, the whole piece.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, and estimated construction costs. And that's really all I think that you need to say.
Because they can't go forward in construction until they get money. This is
Exactly.
a $24
Exactly.
million project.
Oh, no, I understand.
So you don't have to provide a second condition, you just need to receive the information.
Because we're the ones that have to make the approval to take the next step, because you gotta have the money to take the next step. But we want to see those documents in case we want to tweak them. Or maybe the price comes in at 30 million, we go, oh, wait a minute. We can't afford this. So what can we tweak in the designs? We've done this many times with construction projects that through BGS, we've done this in Department of Public Safety.
It definitely needs to come to the legislature. I wasn't sure about what authorities you wanted to put in, or if there are already authorities. For the actual design itself, separate from the funding.
And they're kind of intertwined, because your design's gonna
Oh, no.
determine your funding level.
Right.
And your funding level is kind of gonna determine what tweaks you might put in that design.
No, they're definitely, but, yes, they are together, but I don't understand, or I'm beginning to understand that this is going to be a check back, not a formal approval, or it would be a formal
It's gotta be
approval by
approval.
but you're talking about by the committees, not by the whole
But
chamber.
the fact that if you put money in the capital bill or not, if you're not putting money in the capital bill for construction, you're saying you don't approve.
The-
If you put money in the capital bill to continue construction, you approve. So the issue is you've got to get money to take the next step to go out to bid.
So the money is the approval of the design. Because sometimes you could do it separately, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. But that's how we normally do.
It'll be
So-
normal legislative
okay.
process. You guys, the committees will be the ones to receive the request, so you'll be the one approving it in that sense, but the legislature as a whole
When you
will
vote on
enact
it.
the
And they'll be curious.
second, so. Yeah, it'll be standard legislative process, you're just getting an update, that will help you make that decision.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think that's all there was. Am I missing anything for language at all? I think that,
Would you like to see what I do have?
Yeah.
And I wish that I had already included that one, but I.
no, that's fine. I just know that things are happening so
That's-
fast and you've been focused. It's fine.
Um. Okay, and again, because I just prepared documents for presentation purposes, it's actually easier to understand them than if I'm showing you. In the form of a report or, some strange instances of amendment. We don't have to go through all of these, but I'll just hit them as we go, so maybe you can tell me that I've got it wrong. Aggregate total, this will be just something that Scott and I confirm, but there's been updates there. You stay within the Senate's box with that reauthorization of the 868, but you've changed the FY 26 and FY 27 total, so they slightly shift that piece.
I love that.
Okay. First thing is the FY 26 3-acre parcel stormwater compliance. I think the Senate had this at 1.1 and maybe the House did as well. That's dropped down to 500K. There's also a cash change as well. Yeah. Statewide major maintenance, the figure I heard, I know there was a bunch back and forth on this, and maybe this one is not useful for you guys because it's kind of a bank in which it's the result of all the other decision making.
Yeah.
So we'll just confirm that at the end. Okay, here's what I do currently have the update to the state house entryway upgrades. So it had been at 1.325 in the Senate proposal, and there was the reference to second floor egress design. I heard a slight rejiggering of the language and the drop down to 1.3 million. So it's now design docs, including comprehensive parking plan and delivery truck access, and design of cloakroom second floor egress. I don't know that I have to say second floor, that was just to maintain a tie to the prior way that it was formulated.
The second floor is fine, cloakroom, I would like to have flexibility. That's the point of this, is to see if there's another way to do it. And it could very well be, end up in the cloakroom. But the idea was to give the architect, another chance to look at other ways to do it. So I would like to delete cloakroom from this. Are you guys okay with that?
You're fine.
Okay,
Makes sense.
thanks.
Yeah, separated. Do we want to just return it to the Senate, which was second floor egress design?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. That's full circle.
Say that's eagle ear listening to the discussion on that. You pick up.
We talked about.
We did, we
We
absolutely
did,
did.
and we agreed to smoke room.
Yeah.
So I'm just going around in circles.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that's dropped down to 1.3 and it results in changes to the aggregate totals to both FY 26 and FY 27 with the change to major maintenance.
This is really.
Okay, section 3 AHS. There is a change to FY 26, so this is a new addition. This is some door controls. This is a result from movement from the big bang for general door controls statewide, not prescriptive as to what specific location. So now you're bumping up the St. Johnsbury door control systems in bonded dollars. There's further updates later on in bonded dollars, bumping up that door control by 480K to 1.48 million in FY 26. In FY 27, you also have the update to St. Johnsbury door control systems. That's a 320K bump to get you to 2.92 million. Something you're not going to see here This is previously where the recovery house piece was included, so that has been struck. And I really should have left it there for presentation purposes in blue or something, but, and the language change I did make, I do have pieces for this, so there's more than just this. So first is the line item itself, maintenance, replacement, and renovations at the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. And then some pretty big increases in specificities to the other facilities or other correctional facilities utilized in response to overcrowding for the incarcerated women's population. So it creates kind of a waterfall. These funds for the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility, you could do maintenance or repair there. But if you need to respond to overcrowding and go to other correctional facilities, you could use those funds in those locations.
So just the overcrowding impacts the Chittenden facility itself. So that should modify the maintenance, replacement, and renovations. Because the overcrowding is part of
But
the renovation.
I hear you, but the funds are available for the facility to use them for those purposes. So they don't, I think of the condition being applied to ensure that you don't extend these funds to sort of random other facilities.
Okay.
You do want the funds to go to the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility, as I understand it, as the priority. So that's what it allows. But the modify, you're correct that they're dealing with overcrowding, which is why the funds go there, but you don't need to restrict their uses to overcrowding, as I heard it.
Right. No, I don't understand.
But you do want to
Okay,
restrict the
got it.
kinds of other facilities to which the money could be extended. So
Yeah.
that's why you have the modifier there. There's more. This. So among the uses of funds appropriated in the subdivision we just talked about, Department of Buildings and General Services shall prioritize bathroom repairs at the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. I know there's also been talk of drains, but I hope that that is picked up here. If not, we can add in and drains.
Would it be bathrooms and showers? Or is showers incorporated in bathrooms?
Just be bathrooms.
Because the drains are really with the showers.
I mean, I commonly take the showers in bathrooms. I
Right, but
don't know
I'm
the
just
drain.
thinking
Yeah,
of how it's designed.
yeah,
how
no,
the
for sure.
building's
You could have
designed.
strange.
Because the showers are separate. There's separate units.
I mean, just plumbing, or is that a step too far?
Oh, it's-
Full
no,
bathroom,
no.
full bathroom.
Oh,
But they're not designed like that.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
They're not
Just say
designed.
bathrooms and showers
I would put in,
And then
because you've
you-
got
then
separate
you-
showers.
covered.
Yeah, bathrooms and showers.
I love your incredibly pragmatic attitude. Consider that's it. I found it very helpful throughout this process. Bathrooms and showers. So prioritize bathrooms, repairs of bathrooms and showers at Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. And then you have a conditional kind of report.
Yeah.
If BGS applies funds to respond to overcrowding, and here you might want to add at other facilities,
At other correctional.
at other
facilities.
correctional
Yeah,
facilities,
it's really
in
important.
response to.
Yeah.
The commissioner shall provide an overview of the use of funds to the Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee at one of the committee's regularly scheduled meetings in calendar year 2026. So if they do decide to use those funds beyond CRCF, they would need to come and give an overview of that discourse. That seem okay to folks?
I'm just wondering by using the term at one of the
No.
committees regularly scheduled, because it could take more than one. I'm just wondering if that really.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to make the condition specific. So basically there's a trigger each time, like if you were to elect to go to a different facility, you would need to come back. Or
Yeah, applies funds to respond. Should find that.
for each, you know,
Or just at the committee's regularly scheduled meetings,
sure.
just do it
Yeah.
that way. Instead of just saying at one, because we meet about 6 times, we just.
Yeah, the orientation here was to distinct from the other, you got your mandating at every regularly scheduled meeting, I understood this to be a less burdensome process, but yeah. results in changes to the aggregate totals. Okay, section 4. You have commerce and community development. I believe the way that this worked is that you pulled $200K from the building community grants, as you'll see later on, or not see.
Yeah.
Actually, they're deleted. And you plug them in here to the major maintenance and statewide historic sites. So that results in an increase to $750K in the 2027 appropriation. Change to the aggregate total. The thing you can see. Building grants. This is just here because the presentation of the document is to show all sections, kind of like you will see in a strike all. There's nothing here in section 6. Section 5A, I wasn't sure on this one, but this was the last I had heard, is that the 110K for technical support to ANR had been updated. And because that was the only update to that particular section, we would leave the full reference in this.
Have you had a chance to talk? We agreed to this, right?
Yes. Well, we agree, yes. I mean, you proposed to do this.
We do agree to.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Nothing in section 6, clean water initiatives. Nothing in judiciary. Nothing in the reallocations. My understanding is there's agreement to the Senate's proposal that 868. Cash.
And just to be clear, appropriations committee has been kept abreast of the changes in the cash fund.
The record's gotten more beneficial. Once we're done the language here, we'll give them the cash changes. There's not a lot of cash changes, so it's not that they have a lot to do, but we'll lift it from here and give it to them for the next conference.
So we also keep the language in yours. Okay.
FY27 cash authorizations, and in this case, did do the kind thing of including blue highlighted or what will actually be deleted. So the first changes to your statewide major maintenance. I don't actually recall off the top of my head what this previously was.
For which one, the blue?
The yellow 1.781.
Oh, we put more money in.
Right, and I thought we were taking the 200 out of what you put the extra money in to what you read.
Yeah, exactly. This is the cat word. It looks a little different in the presentation of the bill itself, I think.
Yeah.
Just because we jumped through all the bonding sections and now we're in.
It came out of the bottom for
Yeah.
historic maintenance. Yeah, not cash.
So this is the number that's actually there now. So,
For cash, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The real piece you see is zeroing out the cash FY27 for statewide 3 for personal stormwater compliance. We talked about the tweak above in the bonded section. That 500K. Also have zeroed out what used to be 2.7 million for the door control upgrades generally. And you see pretty naturally where that went. St. John's Ferry, Northeast Correctional Complex, door control system replacements, 2.7 there. We have one more, yes, Wi-Fi. Which I know there's more to come, but the line item itself, the cash is 750K. That had been in 250K in the Senate proposal, 3 mils in the House, that's 750. And that is it for the money sections.
So I'm kind of going back and trying to think how to best propose this. Would it be better just to keep this document not to a start? I don't know. I think going back and forth on this.
I mean, it will, just to be clear, it will look slightly different than this because I did this for presentation purposes. And if you assembled the policy sections I showed you and added in the underlying, stormwater and those pieces, which were agreed as I understand it. And then you had all that we just walked through, that would be strike all. Like, because what I just showed you is all of the money sections, even ones that are unchanged. But it's you guys' call. It's just whatever you would like to see.
I don't have an opinion on that.
I mean, the other, are you thinking in terms of what you'll need to do on, because one thing I think about an advantage with conference committee is that it's just yes or no.
Yeah, but something's gonna be printed in the calendar. The conference committee report is going to be printed in the Senate House calendar. So do we have a whole bill printed in the calendar? Or just those changes that we've done? What's gonna be?
What would lead to the fewest bill of flowers from you?
Staff.
Yeah, because in the end, when all is said and done, both bodies that voted on is signed by the governor, we're gonna have a complete bill we're gonna have a complete bill anyway that we can access,
So,
correct?
yes, so the way that it would look if you just did the instances is any unhighlighted sections that you just saw in the money section would be removed. And each of the highlighted sections would become its own instance of amendment. And then the policy piece I showed you, plus any updates that we'll have in this discussion with ADS or TSC on the Wi-Fi, you would just have those sections as instances of amendment. So I don't know that it's actually less work to do the instances of amendment. Because I have to formulate them each as an instance. And it's still huge. It's still a big document.
I'm just thinking, how's it gonna be the easiest to report it out?
I think it's easier to report when you have the whole bill, when it's a strike all. Was my experience reporting
Yeah.
this one.
I mean, the other thing to do with that is you can have the strike all. And then when you get to sections that are agreed, I mean,
You
just
just
in your notes, you know that
Yeah.
section 6
Right.
isn't agreed, not going to say anything here. This is already,
Right.
and it's included here for purposes of having the whole presentation, but there's no dispute over this.
And I think it's good for the body to understand the whole bill.
The other thing I would offer just on the staff side is sometimes I compile the full thing so I can check all the numbers. Obviously Scott checks in the spreadsheet, and then by halftime, I like to check manually through the language.
So let's do this, yeah.
Yeah. We obviously gotta run, so we're adjourned.
So when are we getting next?
Well,
When are,
we need the conversation.
Yeah.
With ADS. And S-193 is a bill I'm reporting on the floor, along with Pastor Fisher, there's gonna be an amendment. There may be an amendment. Maybe. I gotta talk to you. You said it's second, hold up.
Well, they said we pushed it to the 7th.
They pushed it.
No, the 193. Oh.
S-193,
Oh,
they
okay.
pushed.
okay,
Yes.
So 11:30,
I have a different Commerce Committee at noon.
but 11:30,
And-
Kristen Calver and Denise can meet.
Correct.
So if one of your committee members
Okay,
could,
we'll do our best for that, but then, so we really need to leave now. We can say 1 as a tentative time for this next, for our
think so.
next meeting,
yeah,
and then likely there's a fair amount or reasonable likelihood that we'll have to change it, but you want that before we get offline, right? That's
Sure,
why,
that's
that's why, okay.
so 1 o'clock.
So 1 o'clock today is